Hey everybody, welcome back to LegalSpeak. I'm the Law Morris, and this is the short video essay series where I discuss what I think of the games I've been playing in the gaming industry as a whole. This week we're going to be talking about Injustice 2. Before we get started, I would like to take a second to remind everyone to check out our weekly podcast, HardReset. This week we discussed movie video games. You can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Also, I've started live streaming the highest difficulty of Ghost Recon Wildlands. You can check that out over at twitch.tv/thelawmorris, and follow me on Twitter at thelawmorris for notifications on when that stream starts. And finally, don't forget to check out our website, coldnorthpro.com, for everything we do, and now some things other people do as well, all in one place. I'll be linking everything in the description down below. Injustice 2 is another game about superheroes fighting each other. The concept has been approached in several different ways, and after the surprisingly good first game, Injustice Gods Among Us, launched in 2013, the gaming audience was eagerly anticipating the almost inevitable sequel. When it launched, Injustice 2 was good, but somehow it wasn't able to capture the same levels of fun and engagement that the first game got from me. Injustice 2 is simply not as good of a game as Gods Among Us, and after revisiting the game recently, I have a theory as to why. Injustice 2 wound up being a very different game than Gods Among Us. Where Gods Among Us focused on making a fun experience for everyone, Injustice 2 was more concerned with being a competitive fighting game for a more hardcore audience. While it is a gross oversimplification of a complex genre of games, fighting games can be split into two categories: the fun ones that are easy to pick up and play, and the hard ones that require commitment and mastery in order to be enjoyed at a higher level. Both have their benefits and drawbacks, and both are perfectly valid types of video games. And of course, you have the god-tier fighting games like Smash that manage to be extremely accessible to casual audiences and incredibly deep for the most hardcore players. Gods Among Us was an excellent, easily accessible fighting game that I've played for hours on end with friends when there's nothing to do, and also for top-tier entertainment parties. Injustice 2 seems to have tried to make the jump into the more competitive gaming scene, and due to a combination of market saturation in that space and simply not being as well honed and experienced as others in that space, it has for the most part fallen flat. Slower movement requiring more deliberate gameplay makes the hard-hitting action one would expect from a game all about superheroes fighting each other feel absent, but after just an hour or so spent with the game, players have experienced enough to know that what they want is there, but it's just out of reach, and the time commitment required to unlock it isn't feasible for the average Injustice 2 player. Injustice 2 is, simply put, not as good as Gods Among Us. The point of this video isn't to shit all over Injustice 2, because it is a good game that I genuinely enjoyed. I simply am wanting to dissect why I enjoyed Gods Among Us significantly more. So much of what is added together to make Injustice 2 is excellent. The graphics are beautiful, with lighting effects and textures that really bring the world around the fighters to life, actually fixing one of my biggest gripes with the first game. It maintains what I consider to be some of the best physical interpretations of these characters we've ever seen. Injustice 2 gets closer to the line that separates cool and believable character design and ridiculously over the top without crossing it than any other DC property has before. The DC Cinematic Universe should definitely be taking notes on how to deliver these characters in a believable yet fantastical way. The story of the game is fun and more comic booky than anything even the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been able to pull off prior to Infinity War, and the DLC characters round out what was initially a fairly lackluster roster and make it a showstopper. Standouts like Red Hood, Sub-Zero, Hellboy, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles make the cast of characters what kids want when arguing over who could beat up who. Injustice 2 has so much good going for it, and NetherRealm in no way made a bad game, they just made the wrong game. Competitive esports have been on the rise the past couple of years, some even getting to the point where they're being aired on television. Overwatch, Dota 2, Street Fighter, Smash Bros, and CSGO have all been living the good life as they rake in sponsorship revenue the video game industry hasn't even seen before, and who can blame NetherRealm or Warner Bros for wanting to get in on the relative ground level? Injustice 2 is a product of its time, and it was obviously in pursuit of new revenue streams in the competitive esports world. The reason Injustice 2 has struggled to gain a foothold is because the market they were chasing is filled with competition that is doing almost everything better. Street Fighter and Super Smash Bros. Have the competitive fighting market cornered, and trying to break into that scene at this point is a fool's errand. Gods Among Us sold well, but Injustice 2 didn't cater to the same crowd as Gods Among Us. The player base that played Gods Among Us stayed engaged in that game for months after launch, and some even continued to play it years after, going as far as to play the first game after the release of the second game. The reason for this was simple: the game is fun. Injustice 2 hasn't been able to maintain the same level of player engagement, and as a result, it has underperformed when compared to Gods Among Us. Despite all of the good Injustice 2 has, it lacks the fun that drove Gods Among Us. In April 2013, Gods Among Us launched on the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii U, and again on PS4, PS Vita, and Windows PC in November of that year. While sales figures for the PC aren't readily available, across the other 5 platforms, Gods Among Us sold just over 4 million copies. In May of 2017, Injustice 2 was released on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and while again PC sales figures aren't readily available, the game only sold about 2.3 million copies, a significant cut from its predecessor. While Injustice 2 launched on half the platforms Gods Among Us did, it also launched at a different time of year, and faced stiffer competition from not only other fighting games like Tekken 7, but also from games of other genres. Injustice 2 is not a bad game. What it is it's a victim of the perfect storm that led to its relative demise. Injustice is a fighting game series that seems to suffer from a lack of a greater vision for what the series is supposed to be. I had a ton of fun with Gods Among Us, and I even enjoyed Injustice 2, but lower sales, combined with less player engagement, spells a grim future for Injustice as a franchise. If there is a desire to make a third game, NetherRealm is definitely facing an uphill battle.